wise once said,
"There is a force moving beneath the surface of your life. It cannot be touched with your hands, nor measured by any instrument of man, yet it shapes the weight of your days, the pull of your ambitions, and the outcome of every silent decision you make. It is not luck. It is not chance. It is law." Long before you and I were born, this law was set in motion. It is the silent architect of success, and it does not concern itself with opinion, with hope, or with the complaints of the undisciplined. It rewards the man who aligns with it, and it punishes the one who defies it, not with anger, but with indifference. You see, life is not waiting to hand you success. Life waits to see if you will build yourself into the kind of man who can carry it. We live in a universe governed by invisible structures, invisible rivers of power, and they favor not the loudest voice, nor the quickest mover, nor the cleverest tongue. They favor the man who understands their rhythm, the one who builds his inner life according to law, not emotion, the one who treats his mind as sacred ground, not as a playground for fear, the one who sees discipline not as suffering, but as the drawing of blueprints for an invisible temple. There is no cruelty in this. There is no favoritism, only law, only structure. And those who refuse to learn it, no matter their talents, their prayers, their enthusiasm, will find themselves working against a current too strong to overcome. I have spent my life studying this current, following its hidden channels, tracing the lives of men who succeeded not by whim, but by design. And in that search, I uncovered the patterns, the principles, the permanent things. These principles are not theories. They are not suggestions. They are laws just as real as gravity, silent, patient, and relentless. And once you see them, once you feel their rhythm, working through every day of your existence, you will never look at success the same way again. Because you will realize success is not something you stumble upon. It is something you construct, stone by stone, thought by thought, action by action, until the world has no choice but to recognize the structure you have built. Today, I will show you these principles, not as a scholar to a student, but as a builder to a builder. Not as a man who studied them from a distance, but as one who walked among their living proof. These are the laws that shaped fortunes, carved names into history, and turned quiet convictions into world-altering realities. There are 13 invisible foundations upon which every enduring success story has been raised. They are simple, but do not mistake their simplicity for softness. Each one demands everything from you: your mind, your habits, your spirit, your will. And each one, if you honor it, will reshape you from the inside out. Today is not about inspiration. Today is about construction, about the laying of deep foundations, about remembering that the world bends not to wishes, but to law. The men you admire, the victories you dream of, the power you seek, they are not accidents. They are the fruits of invisible seeds planted long before anyone saw the harvest. You are planting every day. The only question is, are you planting chaos, or are you planting destiny? Let us begin the building. Let us lay the invisible stones that history will one day walk upon. Let us begin with the first and greatest law of all: desire. Every building begins with fire, not a fire in the world, but a fire in the mind, a burning need, a hunger, a tension so deep that the soul cannot sit still until it is satisfied. This fire is called desire. Nothing, absolutely nothing, moves in the universe of success until a man has been seized by a desire so strong, so persistent, that it refuses to be silenced by distraction, delayed by failure, or diluted by fear. You may have been taught to treat desire with suspicion. You may have been told that wanting too much is dangerous, selfish, or naive. And so you tempered your fire. You cooled your own blood. You lowered your expectations to match the mediocrity around you. But I tell you, desire is not your enemy. Desire is the divine spark placed within you to awaken you from sleep. Without it, you are nothing but dust, moved by winds you do not control. Without it, you are an empty vessel, filled by the noise of the world and emptied again by the passing of time. It is desire that marks the beginning of all achievement, not casual wishing, not vague hoping, but a precise, deliberate, burning obsession with a defined goal. This is where most men fail, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack resources, but because they have never allowed themselves to want something so badly that it remakes their very nature. You see, true desire does not simply live in your mind. It reorders your habits. It reconfigures your perception. It transforms you into a man who notices opportunities others miss, who persists when others retreat, who prepares while others postpone. A weak desire makes for weak plans. A casual interest makes for casual effort. But a burning desire, a white-hot, all-consuming need to achieve, to build, to manifest what only you can see, that kind of desire bends the world around it. History remembers those who dared to want more, who refused to apologize for it, and who made their longing a living force, visible and undeniable. Desire sharpens the mind. It hardens the will. It gives meaning to sacrifice, structure to wandering, and courage to days when everything seems lost. And hear me now. You are allowed to want something more than survival. You are allowed to build something that reflects the fire you carry inside. You are allowed to refuse the slow death of settling. But permission alone will not save you. You must feed the fire. You must take the vague feeling and shape it into a definite vision. You must know exactly what you want, down to the last detail. You must see it when no one else does, carry it when no one else cares, and labor for it long after others have abandoned their own dreams in exchange for comfort. Desire is not an accident. It is a responsibility. It is the proof that you were meant to build something here that was not here before. And the world will try to cool you. It will offer distractions, doubts, and second-best versions of your dream. It will whisper that wanting is dangerous, that ambition is risky, that settling is safer. But you must decide. You must choose to carry the fire. Because the man whose mind burns with definite desire, the man who refuses to extinguish his own flame, that man becomes a force of nature, and nature itself bends to his will. Desire ignites the fire, but faith is what keeps it burning through the storms. That's the second law, the second principle. Faith. Faith is not a word. It is not a prayer spoken in moments of desperation. It is not a fragile hope clung to when all else fails. Faith is the architecture of unseen things. It is the quiet knowing, buried deeper than your fears, that what you have imagined already belongs to you, even when your eyes see nothing, even when your hands feel nothing, even when your world reflects nothing. Faith is the builder's strength before the foundation is poured. It is the sailor's trust before the horizon appears. It is the architect's vision while others only see an empty field. It is the invisible hand that steadies you when circumstances scream against you. It is the voice that says stand when everything else tells you to retreat. It is the fire that survives the coldest winters of doubt. Without faith, desire collapses into frustration, Without faith, dreams rot into bitterness. Without faith, ambition becomes a hollow echo. But when faith takes root, truly takes root, every obstacle becomes a stepping stone. Every delay becomes a deepening. Every apparent failure becomes a reorganization of strength. Faith is not passive. It is not sitting in the dark, waiting for a miracle. Faith moves. Faith builds. Faith speaks as though the unseen is already real. You can recognize a man of faith by his posture long before you hear his words. He walks as if his future has already saluted him. He acts with the certainty of one who has seen the invisible contract signed in his favor. Not because the evidence is already piled before him, but because the evidence inside him is stronger than the lack of it outside. True faith is an internal certainty that refuses to ask the world for validation. It is the man who keeps building the ship before there is water, the woman who keeps writing the vision before there is applause, the mind that keeps preparing as if the gates have already opened, even when every gate appears closed. Faith does not argue. It does not beg. It does not broadcast itself in loud declarations to the doubting masses. It simply moves forward, one step at a time, until the world has no choice but to catch up. And here's the secret few understand. Faith is not a blind leap. It is not reckless wishing. Faith is calculated loyalty to a reality you have already constructed within your mind. It is built carefully. It is strengthened daily. It's tested continually. And it survives because it was never based on circumstance, but on decision. Faith is the bridge between the world you see and the world you are called to create. And every great man you admire, every fortune that rose from the dust, every empire carved out of obscurity, all were first built in faith, in rooms where no applause echoed, in seasons where no reward was in sight, in nights where only the voice inside remained. That is why faith matters. Because when the crowd leaves, when the momentum fades, when the victories feel 1,000 miles away, only faith will walk with you into the next sunrise. So build it, feed it, protect it, strengthen it every day, until your belief in what is unseen becomes stronger than your memory of what has been. Because the man who masters faith does not wait for success. He calls it to him, and the world, in time, obeys. Desire ignites the fire. Faith holds the vision steady, but no fire, no matter how brightly it burns at the beginning, will survive if it is left unattended. No vision, no matter how powerful, will endure without continual reinforcement. The mind, left to itself, doesn't naturally grow toward greatness. It decays toward doubt. It slides toward fear. It forgets its own strength if you do not remind it daily who it is and where it is going. Autosuggestion is the guardian of the flame. Autosuggestion is the third principle. It is the deliberate, conscious act of speaking into your own mind the reality you are building, until that reality becomes stronger than the world around you. Autosuggestion is not magic. It is not chanting empty words into the wind. It is not the shallow repetition of phrases you do not believe. It is a contract made between your spirit and your subconscious. It is the disciplined daily command to yourself. This is who I am. This is where I am going. This is what belongs to me, and nothing can deny it. The world will not remind you of your mission. It will not encourage your ambition. It will not nourish your dreams. You must become your own voice of conviction. Morning by morning, night by night, your mind must be instructed, shaped, formed. Because if you do not instruct it, the world will. Autosuggestion is the act of taking your desire, taking your faith, and pressing them again and again into the fertile ground of your subconscious until they take root so deeply that no storm can uproot them. It is the practice of bending your own thoughts back into shape when the day's distractions try to bend them away. It is the strength to repeat your vision so often that it becomes the most real thing you know, even when nothing outside reflects it yet. You may not feel like it some days. You may wake with doubt thick in your mind. You may walk through moments of silence, of rejection, of apparent defeat. But that is why autosuggestion is not an option. It is a necessity. A man must build his mind the way a builder tends to the stones of a cathedral, day after day, one phrase at a time, one affirmation at a time, one bold statement of destiny at a time. Because what you say to yourself and what you permit yourself to hear, repeated in the quiet spaces of your own mind, becomes what you build with your hands. Do not wait for the world to confirm you. Do not wait for circumstances to agree with you. You must convince yourself so deeply, so repeatedly, so powerfully that even when the world forgets you, you remain remembered by your own spirit. This is not arrogance. It is not fantasy. It is law. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between a truth told to it by the senses and a truth repeated to it by the spirit. It simply acts. It simply obeys the voice it hears most often. If you feed it fear, it will manifest fear. If you feed it confusion, it will manifest confusion. If you feed it the vision of your success, spoken, repeated, charged with belief, it will move mountains to create that success. This is why the weak drift and the strong ascend. Not because one is more talented, but because one trained his mind while the other abandoned it to the winds. You are training your mind every day, whether you mean to or not. Choose now to do it on purpose. Choose now to become the sculptor of your own subconscious. Choose now to become the voice you have been waiting to hear, because the mind left untrained will betray you. But the mind, fed daily by your own hand, will become the loyal builder of the life you were meant to live. Desire ignites the fire. Faith holds the vision steady. Autosuggestion feeds the mind with certainty. But fire alone does not forge the sword. It must be sharpened with skill. And so comes the next great principle of achievement, the fourth principle for success: specialized knowledge. The world is filled with men who possess knowledge. Libraries overflow with information. Universities echo with lectures. But general knowledge, no matter how vast, builds no fortune, creates no empire, carves no name into the stone of history. Knowledge must be specialized, focused like a blade, honed with purpose, directed with relentless clarity toward a definite end. The man who reads broadly but applies nothing, the man who studies everything but masters nothing, is like a ship with grand sails and no rudder. He drifts, he circles, he sinks. The world rewards not the man who knows many things, but the man who has mastered the one thing that matters most to his purpose. You are not called to be a collector of facts. You are called to be a wielder of power. And power flows not from scattered light, but from concentrated fire. Specialized knowledge is the discipline of gathering the precise information, the exact skill, the necessary wisdom for the construction of your definite purpose. Not to impress, not to appear learned, but to build. You must know your field with precision. You must study it, practice it, live inside it, until your very name becomes synonymous with mastery. Because no man is remembered for what he almost knew. He is remembered for what he commanded. And specialized knowledge is not a possession. It is a living, breathing discipline. It must be updated, strengthened, expanded as you ascend. The man who believes he knows enough has already begun to die. The man who remains a student even as he teaches, He is the one who grows beyond all limits. Look around you. The builders of fortunes, the creators of industries, the architects of revolutions, they were not men of general ambition. They were men who chose a single aim, gathered every piece of knowledge necessary to conquer it, and wielded that knowledge like a sword forged for a single war. So ask not how much you know. Ask instead, how sharply is my knowledge aligned with my desire? How specifically does my learning serve my vision? How urgently am I willing to sharpen my skill until it cuts through all resistance? The builder who wastes his time carving 1,000 different stones will never raise a cathedral. The builder who devotes himself to the right stone shapes the world. Mastery is not for the scattered mind. It is for the focused soul. The man who knows exactly what he needs, hunts it relentlessly, and applies it without hesitation. That man, armed with specialized knowledge, becomes unstoppable. So, specialized knowledge sharpens the weapon, but even the sharpest sword is useless if the warrior cannot see the battlefield ahead. And so the next force, our fifth principle toward the successful life, must enter the work: imagination. It is not enough to know. It is not enough to believe. It is not enough to study the tools and gather the materials. At some point, you must see what does not yet exist. You must create the invisible architecture before the world can follow its shape. Imagination is the silent workshop of your mind. It is where you design the future while standing in the dust of the present. Every bridge you have crossed, every building you have entered, every movement that changed the course of history began first as a vision, a thought unformed, a picture unshared, a private reality whispered first only to its creator. The weak believe imagination is fantasy. They dismiss it as dreaming, as idleness, as a child's play. But the builders of destiny know better. Imagination is the birthing room of reality. It is through imagination that you form definite plans. It is through imagination that you combine your knowledge into new structures. It is through imagination that you rise above what is and give birth to what ought to be. You must learn to live partially in the unseen. While your feet tread the ground of the present, your mind must be working ahead of you, laying the stones of the world that has not yet arrived. This is not daydreaming. It is directed vision. It is disciplined creativity. It is purposeful dreaming, charged with intention and desire. The man who does not cultivate his imagination lives only within the narrow borders of what already exists. He becomes a prisoner of his senses, a servant to conditions, a follower of the paths others have drawn. But the man who trains his imagination, who sits with it daily, who dares to shape the fog into mountains, who dares to see bridges where others see canyons, that man becomes a creator. You were not meant merely to observe. You were designed to conceive, to forge, to bring forth. Imagination is the inner architect. It drafts the plans before the first stone is laid. It sees the harvest before the field is even cleared. It hears the applause before the first word is spoken. Without imagination, desire dies in the desert. Without imagination, knowledge collects dust in silent rooms. It is imagination that breathes life into your preparation. It is imagination that lifts your purpose beyond the reach of mere circumstance. The world you see now is not the limit of what can be. It is merely the residue of what has been imagined before you arrived. But the world that comes next, the world that will be shaped by your hands, your mind, your choices, that world waits in the secret workshop of your imagination. Guard that place. Visit it often. Fill it with precision, with clarity, with courage. Do not allow it to be poisoned by fear or darkened by the laziness of doubt. Because the man who masters his imagination masters the mold of reality itself, and soon the invisible becomes visible. The intangible becomes solid. The vision becomes fact. Imagination opened the gates of unseen worlds, but dreams left floating in the mind soon rot into regret. What is imagined must now be built. And so rises the next principle, organized planning. It is here, at this narrow crossing between thought and action, that most men fall. They dream grand dreams. They feel deep stirrings of purpose. They even taste the first sweetness of conviction, but they fail to take the next sacred step, to translate vision into structure. The universe favors the builder, not the dreamer alone. You must move beyond inspiration. You must sit with your vision, coldly, carefully, courageously, and break it into steps, into actions, into sequences, into structures that the world, blind to your mind's fire, can finally recognize and respond to. A castle conceived in the mind must first become a sketch before it becomes a stone. Organized planning is the discipline of taking the infinite and giving it finite form. It is the art of ordering chaos into harmony. It is the bridge without which the most brilliant ideas drown in the river between intention and reality. And understand this: no great plan ever arrives complete. You will draft, you will fail, you will adjust, you will recalibrate your attack 1,000 times before you see the walls rise before you. But you must plan. Even imperfect planning will carry you farther than perfect dreaming. A man without a plan is a man condemned to react. He becomes a leaf in the wind, a slave to other men's structures, a casualty of circumstance. But the man who sits quietly, with paper before him, and fire within him, and traces out the bones of his ambition, he becomes the architect of his own ascent. Organized planning demands clarity of goal, breakdown of steps, timelines however rough, flexibility without surrender, persistence without apology. You must not wait for the perfect plan. You must dare to act with the best plan you can form, and trust that the building will teach you what the blueprint could not. History remembers not the men who waited to feel ready. It remembers those who moved forward with plans drawn from imperfect hands but relentless hearts. Lay the foundation, mark the next stone, carve out the first path. Even if the way is misted, even if the full horizon is hidden, the plan you set in motion today will become the map you refine tomorrow. Organized planning is the declaration that your dream has moved from private desire to public destiny. It is no longer just something you feel. It is now something you build, brick by brick, word by word, move by move, until the invisible castle first dreamed behind your closed eyes stands so tall that none who see it can ever again deny that you once imagined it. So, we have seen so far that desire sets the dream ablaze. Faith carries it through the unseen. Autosuggestion molds the mind daily. Specialized knowledge sharpens the edge. Imagination stretches the limits of what can be. Organized planning lays the first stones. But all of it, stands useless until one force arrives at the center of the mind like a hammer striking the anvil. Decision, the seventh principle toward your success. The world does not reward the man who thinks the most. It does not favor the one who studies the longest, who waits the most patiently, or who prepares the most cautiously. The world bows to the man who decides, the man who, when faced with the fog of uncertainty, plants his flag in the ground and says, "This way." Decision is not the absence of doubt. It is the mastery of it. It is the refusal to kneel before the infinite unknowns and waste your life waiting for perfect clarity. Life offers no such clarity. There will always be unanswered questions. There will always be missing information. There will always be risk. And the man who requires every answer before he moves dies where he stands. Understand this: indecision is a silent killer. It rots ambition from within. It drains strength from the spirit. It feeds fear until fear becomes the master. You will see it in the eyes of men who once burned with desire, but now live in hesitation. You will hear it in the half-built plans, the projects abandoned midstream, the sentences that begin with "someday." Indecision grows invisible chains around a man's ankles. It does not pull him backwards. It simply keeps him standing still while time, opportunity, and destiny move beyond his reach. But decision cracks those chains. It cuts through the paralysis. It sets the feet moving. It places one stone after another, one action after another, until a path appears where no path was visible before. And it is a skill. It is a discipline. It is a sacred act of power. The successful man does not make decisions emotionally. He makes them swiftly, with calm, with inner alignment, and once made, he stands by them until the facts require adjustment. Not the opinions of the crowd, not the emotions of the moment, not the fears whispered by smaller minds. Facts, and only facts, may alter his course. But the noise of the world, it finds no seat at his table. This is why you must train yourself to decide. Decide the life you will live. Decide the purpose you will serve. Decide the standards you will uphold. Decide the battles worth fighting and ignore the ones that are not. Decide who you are before the world tries to decide for you. Every great ascent begins with one clear decision: I go forward, not tomorrow, not next season, not once the fear fades. Now, and know this: once you decide fully, life itself bends to meet you. People appear, doors creak open, opportunities once invisible shift into view, because life is magnetized to the man who has stopped wandering and started marching. The river flows to the decisive and away from the hesitant. And those who wait to be certain are left wondering why the current of destiny carried others forward while they stood, frozen, on the shore. You were not meant to wither in hesitation. You were meant to move mountains with the weight of your choice. So decide now. Decide fully. Decide even in the presence of uncertainty, because destiny does not wait for the man who hesitates. It rewards the one who says, even with shaking hands, even with unseen ground beneath his feet, I am going forward, and I will not retreat. There comes a moment in every pursuit when the excitement fades, when the vision blurs, when the applause grows silent, when the first failures arrive like unwanted guests who refuse to leave. That's when the eighth principle enters the game: persistence. It is in that moment, when the fire feels cold, when the way feels hidden, when your own mind begins to whisper its betrayals, that the soul faces its true test. It is not enough to desire. It is not enough to believe. It is not enough to plan, to imagine, to decide. Victory belongs to the man who persists, not the man who moves fast, not the man who moves perfectly, but the man who moves again and again and again, when every lesser voice has given up. Persistence is not loud. It is not beautiful. It is not celebrated in the moment. Persistence is dirty hands, aching bones, early mornings when the spirit is tired, late nights when no one is watching, small steps taken in the dark with no guarantee that light will come. Persistence is swallowing failure without losing appetite for the goal. It is working the plan when the thrill is gone. It is fighting the battle long after others have laid down their swords and returned to the comforts of mediocrity. You will be tempted to quit. You will be given 1,000 reasonable excuses to stop. You will hear the soft lullabies of resignation. You tried your best. Maybe it wasn't meant for you. Maybe it's too late. And every man who fails to reach his summit can trace his defeat to the moment he believed those voices. But the man who persists, he outlasts them all. He pushes through the fog of discouragement. He moves through the valleys of rejection. He keeps placing stone after stone, word after word, hour after hour, long after the excitement has withered into nothing but dry discipline. And discipline, carried long enough, hard enough, faithfully enough, becomes fire once again. You must not imagine that your journey will be all light and triumph. You must not expect the world to hand you your destiny because you asked politely. Persistence is the price. It is the blood sacrifice every great achievement demands. There is no substitute. Talent cannot replace it. Genius cannot shortcut it. Luck cannot manufacture it. Resources cannot buy it. Persistence is the invisible currency paid daily until the gates finally swing open. And the most bitter truth is this: most men are bought off before they even realize the real battle has begun. They sell their dreams cheap. They surrender their calling at the first sign of resistance. They trade destiny for comfort without even demanding a fair price. But the few, the stubborn few, the mad few, the relentless few, press on. And because they press on, the world must eventually bow. Not because the world is kind, not because life is easy, but because reality cannot resist the man who refuses to stop hammering. Stone yields to steady rain. Mountains are broken by the slow, patient rivers. And the life you dream of will fall if you simply do not fall first. Persistence is not a season. It is a way of breathing. It is a decision renewed every morning, every hour, every step. And the man who masters it, quietly, faithfully, unspectacularly, becomes unstoppable. Because he has realized a secret most never dare to face. It is not the fastest who win. It is not the loudest who win. It is the one who refuses to stop moving forward. Even when all else says it would be easier to quit. Persistence sharpens the edge of the will. It hardens the spirit against the storms. It makes a man unbreakable in his solitary pursuit. But no man, no matter how fierce his will, was designed to walk the full road alone. True power is not found in isolation. It is multiplied through alliance. There is a limit to the strength of one mind. There is no limit to the strength of minds harmonized together. This is the hidden force known only to the few who rise far above the noise of the world, the mastermind. It's not mere partnership. It is not casual acquaintance. It is not surrounding yourself with those who flatter or agree. The mastermind is the deliberate union of two or more minds working in absolute harmony toward a single burning purpose. That's the ninth principle. When minds connect in this way, a third, invisible mind is formed, a higher mind, a mind that holds powers no single man could summon alone. This is why the great movements of history were never the product of one man's will alone. Behind every figure who rose from obscurity to command destiny, there was a mastermind, a network of minds aligned, focused, feeding strength, wisdom, insight, courage into the heart of the mission. Alone, a single mind can dream. Together, a mastermind can build empires. The mastermind offers amplification of knowledge, expansion of imagination, multiplication of courage, protection against blind spots, acceleration of momentum, and perhaps most importantly, sustenance for the spirit when battles grow long and silence grows heavy. You must be ruthless. in your selection. Not every companion is fit for this sacred alliance. You must seek those whose loyalty matches yours, whose vision does not shrink in the face of difficulty, whose ambition does not rot into jealousy when your star begins to rise. A mastermind cannot be formed by convenience. It must be formed by conviction. It must be guarded from division, nurtured with discipline, and led always by the higher aim, not the lesser appetites of the ego. When you align yourself with the right minds, when you lock arms with those who sharpen you, challenge you, elevate you, you cease moving by human strength alone. You begin moving with collective power, with a spiritual current no enemy can withstand for long. One man can dream a future. A mastermind can build it. One man can resist a season of difficulty. A mastermind can survive generations of opposition. One man can plant seeds. A mastermind can reshape landscapes. The world worships the lone hero. It forgets that behind every man who changed the world stood a network of other minds, other spirits, other warriors, aligned not by accident, but by design. You are called not only to persist alone, but to find, build, and honor your mastermind. Because even the strongest light, left isolated, flickers. But when many flames are brought together, they forge a fire no storm can extinguish. Now, let's move the 10th principle, the 10th law, the mystery of sex transmutation. What does that mean? Well, there is a force inside every man and woman more powerful than ambition, more urgent than fear, more relentless than hunger. It is the force of life itself, the primal, creative energy by which all things are born. It drives the survival of generations, the expansion of empires, the continuance of the race. It is the sexual energy, and Hill did not shy from it. He knew, as few dared to say aloud, that the greatest fortunes, the greatest works, the most towering achievements were often fueled by this sacred fire, but not in its raw form, not as indulgence, not as reckless passion scattered into the dust. It is only when this immense energy is transmuted, redirected, repurposed, restrained, and harnessed that it becomes the supreme fuel for genius. Understand this. Sexual energy is not evil. It is not shameful. It is not something to be feared. It is a mighty river, and like any river, it can nourish the land or destroy it. It depends entirely on whether it is channeled. In the undisciplined man, this energy dissipates. It is wasted on passing pleasures, on brief excitements, on distractions that drain vitality without building destiny. But in the disciplined man, this energy is seized, elevated, transformed. Instead of chasing fleeting gratification, he channels that same urgent force into burning desire toward a definite aim, relentless persistence in the face of delay, creative imagination that stirs inventions and movements, physical endurance that outlasts competitors, spiritual depth that sharpens intuition, emotional richness that forges profound leadership. The redirected sexual energy becomes a furnace within the soul, turning common ambition into uncommon power. This is why Hill called it a mystery, because few ever learn the secret. Most live and die ruled by the appetites of the flesh, never realizing that the very energy that ruled them could have crowned them. You must make a sacred decision. Will you allow your creative force to scatter across shallow pleasures, or will you collect it, concentrate it, and drive it like a raging current into the building of something immortal? The choice is not made once. It is made daily. Every urge is a crossroads. Every temptation a test of whether you command your energies or they command you. Those who squander their force live by impulse. They start quickly and fade even faster. Their dreams become as fleeting as the moments of pleasure they chose to chase. But those who master the transmutation of energy, they become relentless. Their drive does not flicker out when obstacles appear. Their vision does not falter when easy pleasures call. Their creativity does not wither under strain. Instead, it grows sharper, hotter, more focused. Because the fire that once burned aimlessly now burns like a forge for destiny. There is no shame in feeling the force. It is life itself calling for expression. But there is tragedy in wasting it. The man who learns to elevate it, who offers it up to his highest purpose rather than his lowest appetites, becomes a different kind of creature altogether. He moves with a vitality others cannot understand. He creates with a force that astonishes the world. He endures when others collapse. And the reason is simple. He has learned to command the river and turn it toward the building of his empire. Now let's move to one of the most important of all principles. There is a part of you that never sleeps. It hears what you say when you think no one listens. It remembers the commands you issue in moments of anger, of fear, of hope, of prayer. It records every whisper of your soul. It accepts every seed you plant, and it does not ask whether it should grow them. The subconscious mind is the silent architect of your life. The subconscious mind is the greatest law. You cannot see it. You cannot touch it. But everything you experience bears its fingerprints. Every success, every failure, every pattern that repeats itself, even when you swear you've changed. The subconscious mind does not judge what you plant. It simply nurtures. It simply grows. It takes the thoughts you feed it, the beliefs you reinforce, the emotional truths you carry, and it builds your reality brick by brick behind the curtain of your waking awareness. You may tell yourself consciously that you want abundance, but if your subconscious mind has been soaked in scarcity, if it has been trained daily by fear, by doubt, by small thinking, then it will build scarcity for you faithfully, relentlessly, invisibly, because it does not respond to your wishes. It responds to your dominant atmosphere. It obeys repetition, not occasional hope. It obeys emotional charge, not shallow statements. It obeys what you allow to take root, whether you mean to or not. This is why no man rises until he learns to command his subconscious, until he becomes ruthless about what he allows into the inner garden of his mind. The conscious mind is the gatekeeper. The subconscious mind is the builder. If the gatekeeper is asleep, if the gatekeeper is lazy, if the gatekeeper allows weeds and poisons and thorns to flood in unchecked, then the builder has no choice but to construct a life filled with those same weeds. You are building all the time, even now, even in your doubts, even in your casual thoughts, even in your quiet self-criticisms. There is no neutral ground. There is no moment when the soil stops growing what has been planted, and so the wise man becomes vigilant. He feeds his subconscious mind only that which serves his vision. He refuses to rehearse failure in his thoughts. He refuses to bathe his mind in the smallness of other people's expectations. He saturates his inner world with the atmosphere of victory, even when the outer world still shows signs of defeat, because he knows that the visible follows the invisible, not the other way around. He understands that reality is not built by the hands first, but by the beliefs that move the hands. The subconscious mind must be fed daily. It must be programmed with intention. It must be shaped with care, not with violence, not with panic, but with the quiet, patient, unshakable repetition of the truth he has chosen to live by. You do not argue with your subconscious. You do not plead with it. You do not hope it will hear you if you speak only once. You instruct it again and again until what you instruct becomes the law within you. The man who rules his subconscious rules the stage before the curtain ever rises. He wins battles before they are fought. He claims victory before the world even knows a war has begun, because deep beneath the noise of the visible, he has built a fortress no enemy can storm. He has planted truth so deeply that no lie can uproot it. He has shaped his destiny before he ever takes his first step toward it. The mind is more than a container for ideas. The brain is more than a warehouse of memories and calculations. It is not simply an instrument of logic or an archive of experience. The brain is a living station. It broadcasts, it receives, it vibrates. That's our 12th law. The brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Every thought you think emits a vibration. Every emotion you cultivate sends out a frequency. Every belief you cement into your spirit becomes a signal that travels beyond the barriers of the physical, seeking resonance in the invisible fields where all minds are linked. You are never thinking in isolation. Your mind is not a sealed vault. It is a transmitter, sending out waves of energy that call to the unseen architecture of life, drawing back to you events, people, opportunities, or obstacles, according to the nature of what you have broadcasted. This is not mysticism. It is not vague spirituality. It is law. It is the unseen science by which men attract their fates. If your dominant thoughts are clear, confident, and charged with burning purpose, your brain broadcasts those signals ceaselessly into the great ocean of infinite intelligence. And life, unseen first, seen later, organizes itself to meet you. If your dominant thoughts are clouded, fearful, confused, apologetic, then you broadcast that uncertainty, and life dutifully returns to you, its mirror. Every action you take is preceded by thought, but every result you experience is preceded by broadcasted frequency. This is why two men of equal ability achieve such different destinies. The difference was not in what they learned from books, but in the atmosphere of thought they maintained without ceasing. The one carried the vibration of doubt. The other carried the vibration of inevitability, and the world answered accordingly. Your brain is an instrument of enormous delicacy. It must be tuned deliberately. You must be ruthless about the atmosphere you allow to form around your thoughts. You must refuse to entertain the fog of vague desire. You must reject the temptation to rehearse failure in your imagination. You must discipline your mental station daily, feeding it with clarity, with certainty, with vivid visions of the world you are committed to creating. The brain not only broadcasts, it also receives. It is tuned to pick up flashes of insight, bursts of intuition, ideas that seem to arrive from nowhere. They do not come from nowhere. They come from the infinite field of mind that binds all things together. Your greatest inspirations, the seemingly sudden ideas that solve long-standing problems, the visions that arrive like whispers from eternity, are the fruit of your mind receiving from the greater mind. But you must be tuned to hear them. You must have built an atmosphere within yourself that matches their high frequency. You cannot receive clarity while broadcasting confusion. You cannot receive divine ideas while wallowing in the mud of hesitation and doubt. The brain, when properly disciplined, becomes a sacred instrument of reception. It hears what the scattered mind misses. It receives what the restless spirit drowns out. And so, the work is twofold. Discipline what you broadcast. Elevate what you can receive. Make your mind a sanctuary. Make your thoughts a lit beacon that sends out only signals worthy of the life you claim to be building. Because every moment you are awake, You are sending your signal. You are receiving your answers. And the life you live is the harvest of the frequencies you have allowed to shape you. Your brain is not your master, it is your instrument. Tune it well, and it will bring you the world. Now, here comes our last principle, our last law, and the most beautiful of all. The sixth sense, the silent whisper of infinite intelligence. Beyond all structure, beyond all effort, beyond all the deliberate disciplines of the conscious mind, there is a realm that cannot be summoned by force, cannot be commanded by willpower, cannot be mapped by the intellect alone. It is not built, it is received. It is the quiet voice that arrives without warning, the sudden knowing that does not explain itself, the invisible hand that redirects your steps in a moment of crisis, the flash of certainty that comes faster than thought, the glimpse of truth that no book, no lecture, no advisor could have prepared you to see. The sixth sense is the final gift, the crowning secret of those who have walked the long road of preparation. It is not given to the curious. It is not given to the casual. It is reserved for the man who has laid every other stone first, who has burned with desire, anchored himself in faith, fed his mind with autosuggestion, armed himself with specialized knowledge, built and dreamed with imagination, structured his ambition through organized planning, cut through the fog with decision, outlasted discouragement through persistence, aligned himself with the power of the mastermind, transmuted his primal energies into creation, planted and guarded the seeds of his subconscious mind, tuned the frequencies of his brain with ruthless clarity. Only then, not as a reward for perfection, but as a natural unfolding, the sixth sense begins to stir. It moves softly at first, a whisper behind the noise, a tug in the gut when a decision must be made, a sudden pull toward one road instead of another. It comes without force, without the loud fanfare the ego would prefer. And because it is so quiet, so understated, many miss it. They dismiss it as coincidence. They override it with reason. They rush past it in their anxiety to control outcomes. But those who are wise, those who have trained their inner atmosphere to recognize sacred things, learn to listen. And in that listening, they tap into the oldest current of wisdom known to man. The sixth sense connects you directly to infinite intelligence. It bypasses your careful plans, your fears, your ambitions, your calculations, and hands you a key from beyond the veil. Sometimes it saves you from disaster you could not have foreseen. Sometimes it leads you toward opportunities you would never have recognized. Sometimes it gives you a word to speak that opens doors no argument ever could. And you will never be able to explain it fully to others. It is not logical. It is not scientific in the way the world demands. It is not provable, but it is undeniable once you have touched it. You will feel it in the marrow of your bones. You will know that something wiser than your limited mind has whispered to you. And if you obey it, without hesitation, without bargaining, your life will move on currents you did not even know existed. The sixth sense is the rarest of gifts, not because it is given to so few, but because so few ever walk the road of preparation far enough to receive it. You cannot force it to come. You cannot fake its arrival. You can only make yourself ready. And when you are ready, it comes. It comes without announcement, without warning, without ceremony. It comes at the precise moment when you no longer live by instinct alone, nor by reason alone, but by a higher harmony of all forces within you. It is the whisper that turns warriors into kings, builders into legends, seekers into seers. The sixth sense is not the beginning of mastery. It is the seal placed upon the life of the man who has already mastered himself. You have heard now the foundations. You have seen the hidden structure. The invisible laws are no longer invisible to you. But knowing is not enough. The world is full of men who know and yet remain unchanged. The libraries echo with the memories of those who studied the path, but never walked it. Knowledge must become motion. Understanding must become structure. Fire must become stone. You were not called to admire these laws. You were called to embody them. Every principle you have received is a living thing, a seed of power placed in your hands. But seeds left unplanted bear no fruit. Visions left unbuilt become tombstones to forgotten potential. There will be days when you forget. There will be days when doubt moves heavier than faith, when the fire feels dim, when the steps forward seem slow. It is then that you must remember, desire is still burning beneath the ashes. Faith still holds the unseen bridges. Autosuggestion still shapes the unseen soil. Specialized knowledge still sharpens the sword in silence. Imagination still drafts blueprints on the darkest nights. Organized planning still draws the way forward, even through confusion. Decision still slices through hesitation like a blade. Persistence still crushes stones with patient drops of will. The mastermind still lifts you beyond your own reach. The sacred fire of transmuted energy still fuels the engines of destiny. The subconscious mind still obeys the voice you speak within. The brain still sends your signal out into the invisible fields of fortune. And the sixth sense, silent, holy, still watches, still waits to guide. You're never alone on this path. You are never abandoned by these laws once you have welcomed them. They do not vanish because a season grows cold. They do not dissolve because a day grows heavy. They remain. They endure. They wait for your hands to move again. You were not given the map to admire its beauty. You were given it to walk, step by step, stone by stone, word by word, until the invisible world you once touched only in dreams becomes the solid ground beneath your feet. And when the world asks you how it was done, you will not need to answer with words. Your life will be the answer. Your creation will be the proof. Your presence will testify louder than any argument. Because the man who moves according to law, the man who disciplines his spirit according to the higher principles, the man who walks in harmony with the currents of unseen power, becomes a law unto himself. The world bends, not because he demands it, but because he has become the man the world was designed to respond to. You stand now at the beginning of that journey. The principles have been placed in your hands. The fire waits to be fed. The structure waits to be built. Walk. Building persist. Sharpen. Rise. Because your destiny is not found, it is forged. And all the powers of infinite intelligence stand ready to serve the man who dares to live as if it were already true.